So I went, what I would do is my mom grew up in South Central. So her mother was there. So I would stay with my grandmother, who I loved to death. And all my male cousins were there on the weekend. Trust me, guys, follow my story. I'm going somewhere, right? And I would stay with them in South Central because I wanted to have that like brotherly love, that connection with other men. Like my dad worked so much, but he's old. It's not my age, right? And in my age group, I was probably the leader of my little group out in Inglewood, of which was basketball players, athletes. That's who I was. But I wanted to be with my cousins. So I went over there. And one of the things that we got out of being in South Central on almost every single weekend, besides that scary bus ride, was my grandmother, right? So who loves their grandmother? Everybody, but who loves their granny? Everybody, right? Granny's the best, right? And so we would eat some amazing Sunday dinners. And what I liked the most about her Sunday's dinners was what? It was ready by 12 o'clock, right? 12 o'clock. Now you tell me what Black family has Sunday dinner ready at 12 o'clock. Okay? It does not exist on this planet. So around 11 o'clock in the morning, we would start to smell, this pot roast. I loved her pot roast. I still remember it today. Gravy, mashed potatoes, greens, macaroni and cheese, cornbread. Then we had the great Kool-Aid to go with it with the lemon in it, right? And then the downside of being over my grandmother's was it seemed like every single Sunday around 1 o'clock, she would have to leave. And it would really upset me. And one day I just asked her because, the era I grew up in is stay out of grown folks' business. The children are over here. The adults are over here. But one day when I was alone with my grandmother, I asked her, I said, well, why did you have to always leave on a Sunday at 1 o'clock when most people are kind of like just chilling with their family and things of that nature? See, the one thing about my grandmother was she was uneducated. She got married at 14 years old, y'all. 14. You guys have a daughter like I do? Can you imagine your daughter at 14 getting married? But in her generation, it was kind of normal. So she got married at 14 years old. She was on a fixed income. And I promise you, from where she lived in 52nd and Central, it was not enough to survive. Nowhere near. So what she told me, she would leave to go to Beverly Hills, where all the rich people live. And she would clean up their houses and she would cook their Sunday dinner for the rich people and their families. And she started explaining to me how, she was on a fixed income, making Social Security. And she needed to get, extra cash money kind of to keep her life going. And so, I got to a point when I was around, like I said, 10 or 11 years old, 5th grade, which has really, really hit me hard. And I envisioned myself, my elderly grandmother. Now, nowadays we got a lot of young grandmamas, but my grandmama was always old to me, right? She was always old to me, right? So I envisioned my elderly grandmother on her hands and knees, cleaning up a stranger's house on a Sunday afternoon, cooking dinner for their family. And I just got pissed at a young age. Like I was so upset. And then still doing that, and the money she was receiving, which was, she told me $100 a week at that time, it still kept her in the hood in South Central LA, like one of the worst ghettos on the planet. Like we called it, Karen's here, we called it concrete Vietnam, and it was all of that, right? I saw my cousins get killed and be laying on the sidewalk and things of that nature. So what this did for me is it set my first big emergency outcome at 10 years old. And I started to ask myself, how can I make enough money to pay my grandmother to stay home on Sundays when I got the chance to be with her? I was lucky enough to be with her. And these questions kind of led me to some possibilities. Now, as a 10-year-old, you got to understand, there was no internet, right? Internet came out in 1985 when I graduated high school. And so I couldn't create a YouTube channel like everybody's doing now. So what did I do? I started a recycling aluminum can business, right? My parents had a lot of parties at their house. There was a lot of people on our block. We knew several families as well. So I started saving like aluminum cans. And all of a sudden I had all these bags of aluminum cans and beer cans, soda cans, all these different types of cans. I would get them from the neighbor's house, my parents' house, and I would save them in the back of our house in Inglewood in this pen where we used to keep our dog. And it was a tough business because it would be trash bags on top of trash bags. You guys got to remember, when I graduated high school, I was 6'2", 162 pounds, right? So I was a little dude at 10 years old. Like I wasn't a really big dude like I am now. And so it allowed me to earn about $75 to $100 a week. My dad would, pack up everything. I was getting $5 a week allowance on top of it. So, on a good month, I was making about $120 a month. And I was a fifth grader, so it was pretty good for me. So what that allowed me to do, once every other month or so, maybe once every 3 months, I would give my grandmother $100 because she told me that's what she would make in a week. And working for, the people in Beverly Hills, cleaning their houses and making them dinner. And then she would stay home with me on that one day. And then when my mom would come pick us up from South Central, we would go home. So what it did for me is it taught me that I created a possibility just through asking myself a few questions, which was followed by action. It pushed me into being an entrepreneur that you guys see today. Like I realized at an early age that money equals possibilities for my family. Like the more money I had, the more possibilities my family could have, the more time we could spend together, the more laughter and fun we could have.